Welcome back to the Talking Shop podcast, brought to you by the folks over at Chief of Staff KC. This week, we're joined by a very good friend, Matt Baysinger, CEO and founder of SwellSpark. Yep. Matt, we're so excited. I know you're familiar with this studio, but
I'm usually on. That's the better side, but I think the left side of my face is slightly more attractive than right side. So I'm honored to be on this side today. Thank you.
Well, glad to have you here. This week, we'll cover Matt's career story and entrepreneurial journey, as well as his passion for supporting small businesses here in Kansas City, as well as our Week 11 preview against the Raiders in our fantasy picks for the week. But first, we're bringing you our positions of the week, brought to you by Chief of Staff Kansas City, your local trusted talent scouts. We're a recruiting firm based in Brookside, and we'll bring you the best accounting, finance, admin and marketing, HR, ops, and sales talent Kansas City has to offer. Lucas, what do you got for us this week?
So I got a really exciting one. We're getting away from the controllers that I've been talking about week in and week out. Accounts payable specialist. So good entry-level accounting position if you've had some internships or you're 2 years out of college. Unfortunately, if you're pretty green still, it wouldn't be the best. So at least 2 years of experience up to roughly 5 of high volume, construction-paced, or construction style invoicing experience would be a great fit with this company. You're really going to have next level benefits. They joke around. They say, you play your cards right between the 401k, your annual increase in compensation, as well as some of the bonuses and incentives, you can retire a millionaire. And so I know a few people in there that have taken advantage of that. So it's a great place to start, great company to provide some vertical growth for any entry level accounts payable specialists out there.
Okay. And on my end, I have an install project manager. I kind of touched on it last week, kind of changed up the job description a little bit, but really just looking for someone that's got experience leading crews on site, installing or implementing new production line technology and equipment. Kind of a niche position, but it's going to be a very big one for this company's growth. Really just got to be able to keep the team on time, be that client liaison, representing, our client, and then, kind of managing the subcontractors as well. So if that sounds of interest, reach out. That's going to be located in Olathe. A lot of travel involved, but it could be pretty cool for the right person. So those are your positions of the week, brought to you by Chief of Staff. Let you take it, Lucas.
All right, Matt. So we're going to talk some shop first. We'll talk some chop here in a little bit. But we'll start out really, thank you first and foremost for sitting down with us today and doing this with us. We're really excited to have you. Emerson's told me a bit about, your career story a little bit and how you've transitioned from, I believe, education and then started your own businesses, right? Multiple here. So would you mind giving the folks at home a little insight to that career story?
Yeah, I call myself an accidental business person pretty often. So I started as a high school guidance counselor. Even a step back before then, I used to work for the University of Kansas in student athlete development. And so I was working with first generation college students who were coming in, making sure that they had the skills that were needed sometimes that weren't taught at home, and just being good function, the student side of athletics, right?
Sure.
But I had the opportunity to take a job at St. James Academy in Lenexa as a director of college guidance, kind of there as they were getting started. But man, I had summers off and I didn't know what to do with summers off. Yeah. My wife was a teacher and so I did what I just keep my hands busy, right? Mm-hmm. And I started a film company.
Okay.
And so weddings and events, this was back in 2010. But what I really found was I loved small business. My mom was a small business person, right? She always called me an entrepreneur. I didn't know what that word meant. But man, it's a lot of fun. And so, started a company called Baysinger Films. From there, started something called the Mass Street Soda, which became KC Soda down in River Market. Ended up selling both of those. We started Breakout KC in 2015. Honestly, thinking it was going to be like a side job, weekend only thing. And we're very fortunate to have that business explode. Grew it to 6 locations, and then really found our niche in this idea of gathering people for shared experiences, right? Like doing something that's worth talking about over dinner. And so in 2017, we launched Blade and Timber. We have now grown that to 6 locations as well. Hopefully have more in the pipeline. And then up and coming, we have Sinkers Lounge, which is going to be an indoor upscale mini golf bar.
And I'm excited about that.
It's going to be a blast.
That's cool.
But so man, like the short of the long is we've just found I really love doing stuff. And I know that sounds kind of like silly and maybe oversimplified, but I think it's the heart of friendship, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and so that's been the last 6 years. It's been a whirlwind. And I've had the opportunity through this to travel all over the country. There's no better place to do it than Kansas City.
Really?
And so it's been fun to really dive in and pour into the Kansas City small business entrepreneurial community as well.
Yeah, I love hearing these backgrounds come from like the education world to getting into the business world. We had Jared Keneally on, but between your guys' stories, any teachers out there, right, or counselors, don't give up. You can do it.
Yeah. And it's funny that you said that you originally started, Breakout KC and all those as kind of like a side project that kind of took on a life of its own. And you start to hear there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that start something on the side and downtimes like this sometimes that it kind of takes on a life of its own and becomes their full-time gig. But outside of that, I'm also always fascinated to talk to successful entrepreneurs about really like their passions and reasons for taking that risk, taking that leap to start something new. So what really were the biggest factors in you starting something?
Yeah, risk is a funny word, right? And I think that was, I love talking about risk because a lot of people say like, why did you, when we started a soda shop, they're like, you're what? Like, those all went out of business in the 70s, right? And it's like, yeah, we're going to do different. But I think really quantifying what's the worst that could happen. Right. And I think we oftentimes think of like Chris Farley in a van down by the river, and it's like, no, the reality is the worst that would have happened to me was I'd have been out a little bit of money and a lot of time. And, but it was nothing that I couldn't recover from. And so you have your first taste of success and you're like, okay, it kind of starts to open up just the myriad possibilities, right? And I was talking with a friend recently, and he's like, isn't it funny that at the end of the day, all of us get to do whatever we want to, right? Like we have first world problems is really what it amounts to. But like we live in this culture where, man, if you want to go do this thing, if you want to go across the country, across the world, like you are the only person stopping you more often than not. There's nuances, whatnot. But man, I just think we can do cool stuff. And so again, we found our niche within that. I found my niche. It gives me great joy and delight to, as dumb as it is, like, dude, I'll sit up at night reading TripAdvisor reviews of people who are like, it was the best birthday I've ever had. And I'm like, I did that, we got to play a part of that.
Experiences.
So, yeah. So it's not unlike, one of the reasons that I love sports. It's funny cause like, we'll talk about this more, I'm hoping later, right? But like, I love the experience of the event, of the game. Like I didn't grow up in Kansas City area. I went to KU though. And like the first time you see Allen Fieldhouse, you're just like, I get it now, and I grew up going to University of Colorado basketball games and they were amazing. But it's nothing like the Fog. And so the first time you step in, you're like, okay, like this is special.
Sure.
And I think that's the beauty of sports is they're this great gathering ground. They're this great thing to bring people together and create an amazing shared experience. And it's good stuff.
That's why I miss Arrowhead so much.
I know.
It's insane.
Hopefully we'll be back there sooner than later. We'll keep our hopes up.
And I'm going to take this question. You can follow up.
Yeah, of course. Go for it.
So, I was talking to you just a bit earlier. We had Lucas asking this question, but since we were talking about it, I wanted to kind of double down on it. But, you're pretty involved and plugged into the entrepreneurial community here, kind of being an advocate for small business in Kansas City. Again, I saw your LinkedIn post today about getting those smart thermostats.
Yeah, man.
And for all your locations and wanting to support local, so going to a local retail store to do so. It might have taken you a couple extra days, might have cost a few extra dollars in the long run versus buying it from Amazon. But again, it's your commitment to supporting local, supporting Kansas City. So, what are you seeing right now during COVID in the entrepreneurial community? And how can we, just as general Kansas City consumers, do our best to follow in your footsteps and support local?
And whether it's support local, I think really it's like, how do we, this is going to sound stupid and like probably too salesy or whatever. It's like, how do you live life on purpose, Yeah. And it's really easy. So much of the things that we buy or the things that we do, it's like the path of least, it's the easiest path. Like, oh crap, I didn't get a gift. I'm gonna buy it online and have it shipped there. Yeah. The reality is we have amazing business folks in Kansas City. We have amazing shops. We have amazing restaurants, and we're in a really crappy situation. We're in the middle of a pandemic that we've not seen in 100 years. And so I think asking that question of like, man, like just stepping out of reality for a second, be like, okay, I care for what these folks have done for the city. I want to support them. How can I actually do that? Yeah. And it feels silly to say like, what is your gifting plan, right, for the holiday? Like there's probably all sorts of consumer capitalistic other podcasts we could talk about that on. But it may take a little bit of effort. But
Yeah.
I think if any of the Kansas City business folks are like us, and I know they are, like, we will bend over backwards to make this a good experience for folks in the midst of what's going on.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think once you realize the impact that having those sales go local have comparatively to go into something else, it's like, well, why wouldn't I, you
Right.
know? And so that we've been pushing it, and it's been a big wake up call for us too, just because of COVID, to say, okay, like, we rely on people, right? Like, if we don't have folks show up, we're not going to make it. And to realize, like, if I'm in that position, so many other people are as well. We've been very successful, we've been very fortunate. And so if we as a company that has done well over the last 5 years are feeling the sting this badly, so is everyone else,
Right.
you know? And so anything that I can do to help point folks back to our local economies, on a macro and micro level, I'm going to do my best to do it.
No, that's great. You know, Emerson kind of talked a little bit about your willingness to meet with and help young people. You know, why do you think it's important to help the younger generation, and who and maybe who were some of those big mentors in your life kind of as you were growing up?
Yeah, y'all are the future. I mean, you're not that much younger than me, right? But there's this crazy stat when I was a high school guidance counselor, and they said that our parents' generation, from the time they entered the workforce to the time they retire, has between 7 to 11 jobs, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying for our generation, your generation, that number is going to be between 30 to 40. And I believe it, right? Because I'm 35, and I've been a high school guidance counselor. I've worked in athletics. I worked for the NCAA. I worked at KU. I've been an axe throwing coach. Like, I am statistically speaking, and I think many people are as well. And we're just in a world that changes a lot. And I think, like, I have a very bright, shiny business. We're very much in the public eye. Like, when you hear about axe throwing, you don't often forget about it. There's a lot of businesses that aren't maybe quite as, that's the reason that I get a lot of attention that I don't actually deserve, right? So if I can help, call it inspire, or tell people about my story of why or how we've had a little bit of success, but it always comes back to a couple of really simple truths. It's the relationships you build along the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we exist because of the relationships and because the people have supported us. And then, you know, learning from your mistakes. But in order to have those, you have to make them in the first place, right? And maybe that's bad advice, but I think it's accurate.
You gotta live life.
Fall forward, right?
Yeah, and do it quickly. But, you know, so Trey Vidoc actually was his daughter's high school guidance counselor. And then he's become kind of a mentor. He's with SKC Communications in the business community. Okay. We all know Scott Havens, who's just like the connector of all connectors, right? I mean, there are incredible people. My old boss, Andy Talicki, while he's in education, right, just the value of relationships. And he's with a group that has to raise money because it's a private school, right? And so they're based off of donor funding. And for him to have built those connections and just know so many people who care about making Kansas City better, because that's what it all comes to. We have a special place in Kansas City. So if I can be, you know, like Maddie Carr, who works with me, called me her mentor once, and I was like, oh my, I was so touched, you know. And if I can be that for folks and help show the hope that you can live, you know, a lifestyle that makes you really happy, then gosh, if that's 30 minutes of my time once a week, then why not?
That's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, speaking of Maddie, I mean, she's recently become one of my best friends. You know, and I think you might have been the one that introduced us originally, so appreciate that. But I was actually talking to her recently. Y'all had opened up a new spot in Nashville. Yep. And I'm a Vandy guy, so obviously that hits home. So I just kind of wanted to ask you what the mentality was going to that new market and why you saw that as an opportunity. Yeah, we expanded during COVID, which it was not. We wanted to grow this year, you know, and we were pretty intentional about doing that. We actually had looked at signing a lease all the way back in March. Like March 7th, we had an LOI to do this thing.
That's wild.
Everything changed. But I really think something that we've done well is take advantage of opportunities as they come our way. And so we had this incredible opportunity to take a space that was in the neighborhood that we wanted to be in, that kind of was right part of Nashville, right area. And that's a
Where is
market
it,
so it's in Woodwood, Houston, right? So, just outside of downtown.
Yep.
You're going to hit it if you're driving up from Franklin before you get to downtown. So we can capture that community as well. And, but, part of our big, there's a lot of folks who they look at escape rooms or axe throwing. They say like, Matt, this is a 2-year thing. This is a 3-year thing. And our belief is that it's much longer than that. But in the midst of that, what we're really after is capturing markets. Because I know that if I open a location in Nashville of this concept, it's going to be a lot easier for me to open my next concept there as well because of the relationships that you'll develop along the way. And so we've wanted to be in Nashville for that very purpose. I love that city.
Right there with you.
It's like not as cool version of Kansas City, kind of, but it's great. They have the spicy chicken, hot chicken, whatever, which is like, dude, we're down the street from one of them. But it's somewhat risky thing to grow at this time, but the metaphorical stars align too much to say no. And so, and we've been really pleased with being down there as well. And we've been really building some momentum there too. And so I think in coming out of COVID, the fact that we'll come out with more locations we had going in should help really propel us, once we get to a better version of this life that we're all living right now.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
You want to wrap them up?
Of course. So every week you probably have heard, we figured out with Scott that it wasn't actually his.
I think it was Joel.
It was Joel Goldberg who created it. So maybe you've heard it, maybe you have not. We've kind of transitioned it over to the football element a little bit. But every week we ask guests for a recent first down, sack, and Hail Mary.
Yep.
So first down would be something that you've had a small bit of success that maybe led to sequential success.
Yeah.
Sack would be a recent setback lately. It doesn't have to be detrimental, in the long run, but it's something they had to overcome. And then the Hail Mary, a big lofty goal. It could have been something to do with this year, even next year with 2021. But if you want to start with the first down.
Yeah, man, first down. And this was the LinkedIn post that you kind of referred to. But one of the things that we've done in COVID is just audit our company, like just an internal audit of what we're doing. We grew so fast. We grew from 2 employees to 240 employees in 4 years, right? Yeah. And when you're growing at that speed, you don't often have time to even look around. You're just looking forward. And so recently we made 2 pretty big changes. One, we just audited our phone lines, found that we're going to save $30,000 over 2 years.
That's great.
And then we put in smart thermostats, which should also save us potentially even more than that.
Wow.
And it was such a small, silly change. We're just like, this, and you look at the numbers, we're like, okay, like why wouldn't?
Yeah.
But what it's done is it's like kind of triggered this like what else is there? Like we're like looking around. We're like, are you using that pencil? Should we sell the pencil? Like it's kind of this purging of like what's the stuff we don't need anymore.
Yeah. It's like a first down on a game-winning drive.
Yeah, dude.
Like
it's pretty. It's been fantastic. Sack, right? The elephant in the room. I mean, we got sacked like a 48-yard loss. As far as COVID, like my industry got drilled by COVID. And so our sales are, we're sitting right around 45-50% of what we would normally expect right now. Fortunately, we can sustain that for quite some time, but I'm sad for not Kansas City even necessarily, but like there are so many jobs and so many businesses that have been closed that will not be reopening.
I know. Gosh.
And so I think that's been a big sack for small business in general, which is obviously my heart's turned towards that quite a bit recently. And then a Hail Mary. I mean, we're coming off probably the best Hail Mary of the season for sure, right? Yeah. Not a Chiefs game, obviously, bye week.
Shout out Kyler.
I mean, Nashville was kind of that, right? Like Nashville was this, like we had 2.5 days to get that deal done, or it wasn't going to happen, right? And the way that it was our first acquisition. We actually bought another axe throwing group and then rebranded as Blade and Timber. Okay. Awesome. But this whole situation came about on August 28th, and it had to be finalized by September 1st, or it wasn't going to happen. And so it was a couple like, should we? Yeah. And then you're just looking for reasons for it to not work, right? But like everything, green lights everywhere, right? And so I was like, okay, let's do this, and I think it's been a successful thing for us. So
that's incredible. Good to hear, man.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us, and just your insight into the entrepreneurial community.
Sure.
Yeah. Like, I always love talking to you because I'm always so motivated every time I get a chance to talk to you. So appreciate that, man.
Yep.
But time to chop it up, Matt.
Let's do it.
So the Chiefs are off to a hell of a start to the season. You've been joking about coming on as the guy during the bye week, but what's your opinion been of the Chiefs so far this year?
So I gotta set some context for a minute, right? I'm from Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah.
I grew up. I know, right? Like I grew up a Broncos fan.
Yeah.
I just love talking about sports in general. Obviously, talking about the specifics and the granular elements, but like what sports represent for a city or a culture or whatnot. But I was very fortunate. My college roommate Daryl Stuckey went on to play for the Chargers, and so
cool.
You grow up a Broncos fan, and then all of a sudden, one of your best friends goes to play for the Chargers, and my head is just like, who do I cheer for, right? Like my past tells me that I need to cheer for the Broncos, but like I literally went to a Broncos Chargers game in San Diego to go watch Daryl. I was like, I can't cheer for the Broncos here. Like I got to cheer for Daryl. And like genuinely, I just want Daryl's team to win. Mm-hmm. And so that was like the first chink of the armor of maybe not being a Broncos fan. I've been in Kansas City now for 20 years. And I have another buddy who played for KU football, and he's from Colorado originally. And we've been talking the last couple of years because we've both kind of felt this tug to become Chiefs fans.
Yeah, I love it.
But we're being very methodical about it.
Sure.
Like, should we come out and tell our parents that we're Chiefs? You know, like, and I say that kind of jokingly, but man, it's a big thing when your family culture is like Broncos all the way. But the reality is I catch myself watching Chiefs games, you know? And so I last year I bought my first Chiefs shirt and I wore it, and I was like, I'm going to tomahawk chop at a game. I'm just going to see how it feels, you know? And so I think the reality is I'm a Chiefs fan. I can't tell my dad yet.
Yeah. You are a true product of your environment.
Yeah. But going back to my whole business and like what I stand for, right? It's like, I'm about gathering people for shared experiences. And the reality is there's a lot of Broncos fans here. And so I don't get to share that with folks anymore.
Sure.
Whereas it's really, really fun to celebrate the local team. And obviously, I mean, I'm fully on the bandwagon because it's been a great time to celebrate the local team as well. But knowing folks, you know, in the industry, I suppose, has been kind of eye-opening because like Daryl didn't know where he was going. You know, it's just like, I'm going to be a fan of wherever you end up, I guess.
Sure.
You know? And so I both loved and hated that it was division rival, but he's retired, right? And so I can hate the Chargers all over again.
There you go.
I still hate the Raiders. Like that never changed. So we're good there, you know. And,
So we can bond over
and
that.
then I can cheer for the Chiefs, like, and then there's 2 games a year where I'm kind of like, like I just need to go on a walk or something. You know?
Yeah. Well, we've beat you 10 straight times now, so I don't know.
Fair. Yeah.
10 long walks.
Yep. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah, let's jump into fantasy real quick. You had a funny story about your kind of fantasy career starting off on paper.
Yeah.
Not necessarily translating.
I became very bad at fantasy once I had my daughter.
Makes sense.
You know, and then I tried to like have too many fantasy football teams, and then it broke me.
How many did you get into?
3 was my max, right?
Yeah,
and so, but at the start of this season, my uncle texted like our group fantasy thread, and he's like talking about apparently like my brother, my dad, uncle. You know, they've always been like the top 4 or 5 every year. I didn't realize I had become the easy win. Like our whole family thread, and I was like, kind of put some fire under my belly this year, right? So I was like, I'm gonna be good at fantasy this year. So I'm currently I'm tied for second.
Okay, let's go.
Yep. And so and I've been paying attention, which has been pretty exciting. And really my favorite part is just trash talking as often as I possibly can. That's
the best.
It's all it's about.
No better way to like stay in tune with your friends from across the country playing fantasy.
Right. You know, like seriously though, I mean, right now it's such a great like jumping off point to have conversation too. And so I've really enjoyed it. Yeah. And it's also fun to be at least not terrible at it. So
who's carrying your team this year?
God, dude. So I it's been weird because right now I have 4 Tampa Bay players. I started out, I had Dak and I had Zeke, right?
Oh, okay.
And so as soon as Dak goes out, Ezekiel, he hasn't been great, right? Because you can isolate him. And so I've had to make adjustments. Like I picked up Tom Brady, who's my least favorite football player in the history of humanity for all of the right reasons.
Agreed.
And then I ended up picking up Gronk. And so like right now I'm living and dying by the Bucks.
We got like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Aaron Jones.
You know, I'd have to see. I'm not quite there yet.
Okay.
There's Jones. I have him.
Okay.
Right? Yep.
Touchdown.
And then and I feel like I have someone else. I couldn't tell you who it was. We're getting there. I brought notes. Right. I'm trying to prepare for this conversation. But dude, like honestly, it's been fun.
Nice. Well, you want to go with your starts and sits, and I'll talk about waiver, and we'll jump into the.
Yeah. So Raiders. I try to like focus on like fringe players, right? Like if you are just like between two people and you're like, I don't know, this person might go off against this team, this person might go off against here, and everybody's going to start the Tyreeks of the world or the Pat Mahomes of the world and things of that nature. So Kalen Ballage, Justin Jackson went out on IR. This is a Chargers, correct. And it was like a two-headed dragon there with Jackson and Joshua Kelly. And so I'm on a running back hungry team or needy team because I drafted Christian McCaffrey, and he has been a bust, unfortunately. Yeah. But I've salvaged it. I'm still tied for third right now, and I will be making the playoffs. But what I had to do is I picked up Ballage. I sat him on the bench last week. He's put together 2 15-plus point performances, being the backup to kind of Kelly, but he's their pass catcher. So start Kalen Ballage if you grabbed him off your waiver wire. If not, or he was on your bench and you were curious about him, get him in there. Yeah. And then Marvin Jones Jr. has really stepped up in place of Kenny Golladay being out for the Detroit Lions. He is coming back, and I'm going to ride or die Marvin Jones because when Kenny Golladay comes back, he takes more looks from the defense his direction. He's their true number one. Marvin Jones is really stepping into that wide receiver 2 spot. So I'm going to start him this week again. And then sit Le'Veon Bell, man. If you grabbed him off the waiver wire, I'm sorry, Chiefs fans. I'm sorry. He's just not turning out to be the fantasy player we thought he could be.
Still got a lot of time left.
Yes, we'll agreed. But for this week, it's starting to come, down to the wire here. It's the witching hour, as Scott Hansen would say. So, put him on the bench, start someone a little bit more trusty, or trustworthy, should I say, this week. But those are my starts and sits.
Cool. And I got a couple waiver ads just in case you need some running backs or receivers. Cordero Patterson, if you guys watched, was that Monday night or Sunday night that they played the Vikings?
Last night.
Yeah. So he was all over the field.
Monday.
They've been moving him to their first down back now, and so he's getting a lot of looks. So if he's still available, I'd pick him up. He's hybrid running back receiver. I'm not sure what they classify him as anymore, but if you could start him as a wide receiver with him getting all those touches, it's a good play. Carlos Hyde as well is coming back from injury. He's beating Chris Carson back on the Seattle Seahawks, so he should be primed to start on Thursday. And then Marquez Valdez-Scantling, that is a hell of a name. MVS we'll go with. Receiver from the Packers coming back from injury. Had a pretty good game last week. And if he's still on waiver wires, pick him up because he's now Aaron Rodgers, I think, second target behind Devontae Adams. So.
Thank you for letting me know about Hyde because I have Carson as well in the McCaffrey League. So I've been playing manager, and I'll definitely make sure to get Hyde in there.
There you go. Week 11 coming up. Our shared hatred for the Raiders runs true. The Raiders. But, we actually get to go see their shiny new stadium, their new Death Star-looking stadium for the first time. So that'll be pretty fun to play them in Vegas.
Do a couple laps around it.
Apparently. Yeah, exactly.
That's the goal.
Right? Yeah, that's our bulletin board material this week.
Oh, yeah. ESPN was talking about it this morning. Yeah. Everybody knows now.
Nothing really irritates Andy. It's really hard to get under his skin, but you can tell he's kind of pissed off in the press conference.
That's not our style. Right?
Yeah,
That's what he said. Oh, man.
What are your, first thoughts for the game this week?
I hope we win 100-0. Just because that feels like the best thing to do. This was actually we were hoping to go to the stadium this year, right? All this stuff before it happened, but it's a big game. I don't think if you would ask people before the season is a week 10, week 11 game, Chiefs at Raiders going to be a big deal, and the answer is yes. But I think we're going to beat the tar out of them. Yeah, it's just how it's going to go.
I agree. I think it was their Super Bowl coming into Arrowhead to beat us.
A statement game for sure.
They wanted it more.
Yeah,
for sure.
They did. We didn't look good. It's I was looking up. So again, I'm on this text thread with family members, and we're not quite there yet. But Pat Mahomes, right? So he's about to hit his 1,500 pass attempts, which is a big number because then you're actually in the stat books. He's going to enter in with a quarterback rating somewhere in the range of 110 to 112. You know who's number 2 all time?
Who's that?
It's Aaron Rodgers at 103. So he's gonna come in. He's gonna come in seven.
I love that stat.
Yeah, 7 to 9 points higher than anyone else in NFL history as soon as he enters at 1,500. So I believe in Pat. And I would imagine he's got a little chip on his shoulder from losing the Raiders earlier today.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I'll just dive into my keys to victory real quick, and then we'll kind of wrap up any other thoughts that we have. I love going against Derek Carr because in the past we've made him cry a little bit, just a tad. And no offense to, well, maybe there's offense behind it. I don't know. But his brother, I get tired of hearing his brother, David Carr, talk on ESPN about defending his brother and whatnot. So key to victory number 1, put Derek Carr in the dirt. I love the fact that we can start up front, start mean, start aggressive early, and that will get to Derek, and it will break him as we've seen in the past. So incite that pressure early and often would be point number 1. Point number 2 for keys to victory, maintain coverage integrity. So the first game we played them, we let some big plays get behind us. And that's kind of unlike our bend, don't break type of defense that we've had in the past. So eliminate those big plays and just respect our opponent. Don't look past them. Maybe we were the first time. I don't know. I mean, they have a solid club, but we'll really just have to limit that. So, and then lastly, eliminate all the distractions. So it's fun to talk about the bus and the victory laps, and we'll get to that in due time. Let's take care of business first, right? So look past the rivalry, look past the victory lap, look past all that. Maybe don't let that get in their head. I think if we maintain who we are, it's just another game. So we'll get out there and take care of business. Then we can start talking at the end, right? But yeah. I know we'll be doing it.
I was looking forward to getting healthy again, but unfortunately we put 3 of our linemen on the COVID list.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
We might be able to get him back still because I think Fisher was like a contact trace, but Schwartz, Rankin, and Fisher are all now on the COVID list. We should be getting Sammy back, which should be a huge pickup, and then L'Jarius Sneed as well off of injury. So
I did see a tweet that they feel or they believe that it is just all contract tracing that's taking place, but it was just being in the same room as someone. Right. They don't have it. So that could be a plus.
Matt, what? So we, I guess, do score predictions every week, and we keep track of.
I shouldn't say 100 to 0. Is that what you're saying?
I like it.
Yeah, it would help me out because I'm in last place now. But so we'll do the difference in each score and then add that up over time. But what's your score prediction?
It's going to be 38-17. It's going to be a big game.
Pretty confident. I love it.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yep. 34-21 is my score. So we're going to get up early, and then Derek Carr's going to get his little garbage time tutties to make it a little bit closer race.
All right, I'm going to go 41-27 Chiefs.
Okay.
I think we're going to score big on them. So
I agree with that because I think Andy, maybe towards the end of the game, does something we're used to not seeing and puts the pedal to the metal because of those comments.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Every time I've guessed in the 40s, we've never gotten close.
No.
So,
this is the game. Right?
I'm like 27 points behind. Lucas is tied for first with the guess. So y'all have got the distinct advantage. But that'll do it for us this week. Matt, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Any final comments or anything?
Nah, man. Thanks for making time. It's fun to be a part of this community.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
Well, again, that does it for week 11 of Talkin' Chop. Whether you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Music, make sure to subscribe to catch our weekly episodes. We've got some great guests lined up. Had some great guests like Matt so far here in town. And, looking forward to the rest of the season and some more Chiefs victories. Right. But we'll catch y'all next week. And as always,
go Chiefs.